Welcome back. Well, now Hamas is reportedly threatening to kill all remaining hostages if their demands for more aid in Gaza, aid for Gaza, and additional prisoner exchanges are not met. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling on all Hamas fighters right now to surrender, declaring the conflict is at, quote, the beginning of the end. Surrender now. He says dozens of Hamas terrorists have surrendered already to Israeli Defense Forces over the last few days. Joining me right now on the phone is the 70th Secretary of State for this great country, Fox News contributor Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for calling into the program.
Great to be with you, Maria. Good morning.
So what is your reaction to Hamas now threatening to kill all the remaining hostages? What should be the U.S.'s response?
Maria, this is undoubtedly part of their strategic plan. When they began to lay out their model for 2 years ago, they predicted, I am sure, that one of the things that was likely to happen is precisely this, that Israel would come in, begin to take them down, and they would begin to threaten to kill the remaining hostages. We should take it seriously, right? They've already killed 1,200-plus Israelis, including Americans. We should absolutely take it seriously, but make no mistake about it. The reason we have had hostages returned, the reason they are contemplating now laying down their arms, thinking about a way out of this, is because of the Israeli pressure. One thing Prime Minister Netanyahu cannot do is release the pressure on Hamas and allow them to regroup and rearm. That would be a mistake. It wouldn't benefit the hostages, and it certainly wouldn't benefit the IDF as it does the necessary task of eliminating this terror organization.
Well, I mean, you can't deal with a bully by giving in to the bully's demands, right?
That's exactly right. You know this, Maria. We've talked about this for years. If they release these hostages and turn them over or don't kill them, they'll take more hostages next month or 2 months from now. They've talked about repeating October 7th for ad infinitum. There is only one solution. It is the destruction of Hamas. It is putting pressure on the Iranian regime itself and making clear that the cost of this behavior exceed the benefits associated with conducting it. There's nothing else they understand. Pure power.
Yeah. And by the way, we've done none of that. This administration was so hard-pressed to connect the dots to Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly telling President Biden that Israel will act militarily against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels if the United States fails to do so. The group has been harassing Israel and U.S. forces in the Middle East since Hamas's attack in October. Iranian-backed proxy forces also launched at least 85 attacks on U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria since October 7th. So, Secretary Pompeo, I mean, it's in clear black and white. OK, you've got Iran attacking our military forces in the Middle East. And so far, have we even responded?
Maria, not in a way that would be material. I think we dropped a couple of bombs or missiles into some empty warehouses in Syria. There's only one way that you actually put Iran back in the box, and that is to deter them. We called it the massive pressure campaign, the maximum pressure campaign. We sanctioned them. The Biden administration stopped enforcing sanctions. We declared them terrorists. For example, the very Houthis that you talked about, who are now threatening to close sea lanes, were taken off the terror list by Secretary Blinken. I mean, this is so counterfactual and dangerous. No, this is an effort that will be driven by Iran, and the only way to stop it is to put pressure on the Iranians. We know how to do it. We have clandestine tactics we can use. We have cyber tactics we can use. We have kinetic tactics we can use. We have the power to do this. It simply takes an administration that is not putting folks like Robert O'Malley in front of the Iranians trying to cut a deal with them. Just as we talked about, you can't cut deals with terrorists. You cannot cut deals with the Islamic Republic of Iran either.
And you already did it. I mean, you've already done this. You came up with the Abraham Accords, you and President Trump. But President Biden walked into the Oval Office and reversed everything, said you weren't even allowed to mention the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia was this close to joining the Abraham Accords. So is this all about politics? Is President Biden playing loose with our national security over politics?
I think just hopelessly naive and followed the Obama policy of appeasement. You remember their motto was lead from behind. President Biden said, we're back. We're on our back foot. I think it is a model that evinces an idea that somehow America is the problem and not the solution, when in fact, when we put pressure on Iran, when we were very clear that we were going to be with Israel no matter what, The Gulf Arab states came to see that as reassuring, and so we had isolated Iran. That's what built the Abraham Accords, peace and prosperity in the Middle East. It was expanding. Now it's shrinking. It is a much more dangerous place, and frankly, we always put America first. It's a lot more dangerous for America today because goodness knows what's coming across our southern border, and goodness knows where the Iranians will choose to terrorize next. It could well be in Europe. It could well be in the United States.
Well, that's right. And we heard that from Christopher Wray directly, that right now we're at a moment in time where it's the highest potential for a terrorist attack on U.S. soil right now. And then there's Ukraine, Secretary. President Biden is going to host the Ukrainian President Zelensky at the White House tomorrow. He's been invited to speak at an all-senators meeting during his visit, and he'll meet with House Speaker Mike Johnson as well. Of course, this visit is coming as talks on Ukraine aid are at a standstill. GOP lawmakers trying to fund a stricter border policy. I spoke with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul about this yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures. Here's what he said. Watch.
We don't have the money. While I agree the border should be secured, an even bigger threat is to the dollar and to our currency. I follow Jim Grant. I think he's one of the smartest guys out there, looking at the economy and the Fed. He predicted a lot of the things that happened in 2008 when we had the housing bubble burst. He thinks we're due for high interest rates for a long period of time, but we're accumulating debt at $1 trillion every 3 months now. So really, people can talk about wanting to help other countries. We don't have the money. It has to be printed up. It's destroying our currency, and it's why it costs more to go to the grocery store to buy your groceries. We can't allow this to happen.
Secretary, what about the debt issue? I know that Rand Paul doesn't want troops anywhere. He wants to get out of all of these wars and take troops out of places like Syria and elsewhere. But, Secretary, he's also zeroing in on something that is real important, the fact that it's costing us more. $1 trillion is expected, is going to be the cost in the future, just on the interest payments alone. Do we have the money to keep sending money to Ukraine?
Senator Paul's absolutely correct to identify the $33 trillion, now $34 trillion in debt America has hanging over it. It is a huge problem. It has accumulated under Republicans and Democrats alike. So shame on every one of the elected leaders who drove it there. But if we're looking for the best outcomes for the United States, it's my view that we should continue to underwrite the efforts of Ukraine. They haven't asked for our soldiers. He talked about we can't put soldiers everywhere. They haven't asked for our soldiers. They're just looking for American resources. We can afford to do that. The way to solve our deficit problems, of course, we know, grow the economy, build GDP, reduce spending in our social programs that aren't being used appropriately. That's where the big pockets of money sit. I just think it would be short-sighted and a mistake not to help, whether it's the Israelis defend against the terrorists that are attacking them or the Ukrainians to defend against the terrorists that is attacking them. This will come back to haunt us. America has a deep interest in helping those nations protect their sovereignty. I wish President Biden would close our southern border and protect American sovereignty with the same energy and the same attention. It's possible to do them all, Maria. They're not alternative solutions. We can achieve each of them.
Well, then there's China, which we've spoken about so much. You have been so tough on the aggression out of communist China. But again, a complete reversal in this administration. There have been over 7,000 illegal Chinese migrant encounters nationwide just last month. And this is becoming really curious why so many military-aged men are coming through the southern border from China. What do you think is behind this, Secretary?
I think it was 3 years ago now, perhaps, Maria, you and I first talked about China being here, inside the gates.
That's right.
That while we've got to get it right with respect to Taiwan and the South China Sea and the Belt and Road Initiative, the greatest threat is here. It's in our schools and the Confucius Institutes. It's students who are studying here and stealing our intellectual property. Now we have Chinese fighting-age males coming across our border. Make no mistake about it, the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in a deep influence operation and a deep espionage operation inside of our country. We've got to get it right. We know how to do it. It's going to take Director Wray and President Biden getting serious about protecting the homeland from the threat from the Chinese Communist Party, and then a diligent effort to get the commercial elements of the relationship right abroad.
Yeah, but why aren't we doing that? I mean, I spoke with Kansas Senator Roger Marshall about this yesterday. Here's his take. Watch this.
The Chinese Communist Party pays more attention to our southern border than the White House does. To your point, 24,000 Chinese nationalists have crossed the border under Joe Biden. Those people have now taken positions throughout the country. They're running the police stations here in New York City. Then they're keeping track of their own folks, making sure they're staying in order. They're the money collectors on the end of the fentanyl as well. They're setting up Confucius schools. They've infiltrated our research, and they're buying farmland next to military bases, all things you've reported on, Maria.
Secretary, I don't even know, I can't even imagine that we're talking about this and nothing's being done about it. How disturbing is this to you?
Deeply disturbing, but I was happy to hear my fellow Kansans talking about it in such a thoughtful, serious way. The Biden administration is trying to ride out this last year, and they are now appeasing the Chinese Communist Party in the same way that they have appeased the Ayatollah, in the same way they curated the catastrophe that led to the Taliban retaking Afghanistan. This is now a long litany of foreign policy errors that are going to come back and be very difficult for the next president to fix. They don't understand that the world gets one thing. It gets power and deterrence. And when you lose deterrence against the Ayatollah, or when they fire rockets at your embassies nearly every night, or you lose deterrence against the Taliban, or Chairman Kim in North Korea thinks he can conduct long-range missile tests as he had, it is a really dangerous, precarious place to put our nation. And I cannot for the life of me understand how President Biden doesn't take more seriously his responsibilities to protect each and every one of us.
Unbelievable. Secretary, you've had an incredible, distinguished career, from Kansas congressman to director of the CIA to the Secretary of State for this great nation. Let me ask you, if President Trump is the nominee and then wins the White House, are you planning to be in his cabinet?
Maria, if I'm asked to serve and I think I can make a difference, I've always said yes.
All right. We will leave it there. Secretary, good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So long.
Secretary Mike Pompeo.